when we are debating with people or trying to inform them about certain things going on in the world, red pilling them, it's a very delicate process. And a skill that people must have is the ability to read when it's appropriate to approach a topic in a relaxed or passive fashion, or when to apply intensity. Or another way of saying this might be when to speak broadly versus when to speak with great detail. So for an example, I will speak broadly about a poor way of applying a detailed red pill, if that makes sense. I'll try and give an example. So for example, when you are trying to red pill someone about globalization and corruption and one world governments, it's probably not a good idea to initially start speaking about a specific tribal group who have great influence in government and media. Probably not a good idea to name them. This is something that you should speak very, very broadly about to begin with, and then add detail over time. It's very important to not use certain buzzwords which have a predetermined reaction, or rather that have a reaction programmed into the people that we're going to be speaking to when we use them. So for that reason alone, we don't want to get straight to the hard truth because of the way that people will react. And it will invalidate all of our words that we're going to say, no matter how true they are. It's going to invalidate our words to the people that we're trying to reach. So we have to speak broadly in the beginnings, speak positively in the beginnings, rather than focusing on facts and details, which are true and are important. There's a certain way we should build up to these things. There is a certain hierarchy of positions we need to take and maintain before we progress further in our attack or our debate. There's a certain time to relax, and there's a certain time to apply pressure. There's a certain time to speak broadly, and there's a certain time to be specific and detailed. Now, as far as debates goes, I don't know how people are going to be red pilling people, under what circumstances, if they're actively working on their peers that have no idea that they're being worked on, or if this is something that you might be trying to do or trying to achieve in debate, instigated by yourself or others. It doesn't really matter. But if you are having an active debate where someone has an opposed position to you, you're already in a certain position where you might be attacked for your point of view. So in this instance, say for example we're talking about diet and you're debating with a vegan, there's a good chance the vegan is going to hold a position that is going to be attacking you in your way of life. Now, this is not a position where you should be relaxed. Being assertive and being intense doesn't mean being impolite and rude either, mind you. Maintaining respectful conduct is always going to keep your optics in favor of those who are watching, because when you have a debate with someone, especially if you're doing it on social media, which I don't really approve of, but if you are going to do it, the benefit is not in the person that you're interacting with necessarily, because they're probably not going to say, oh, sorry, I was wrong, I changed my mind, you are right. The benefits, if any, of arguing with someone publicly on social media is of those who are observing and not interacting, people who are on the fence. they might enter this debate, or rather begin viewing this debate from one position or favouring one position. But if you conduct yourself respectfully and reciprocate intensity, and all the while providing adequate facts and details as per they are necessary, you might very well take someone from the grey area to the black or to the white, depending on what side you think you're on. Whereas if you go full gung-ho from the beginning, say, we'll stick with the vegan debate for now. If you're debating a vegan and you're perhaps arguing from a strict carnivore perspective, if you come out initially with walls of texts with overwhelming information of great detail about dietary information, lifestyle information, whatever it is, from whatever basis that you're arguing on, a lot of that is going to be wasted. A lot of that is going to be seen as spam, and the way that it is presented is often overlooked and appears as though you don't actually know what you're speaking about. I've always found that the best way to debate people, well, before I go into this detail, it's very, very important that if you are going to enter a debate, that you know what you're talking about to begin with. You might know something is right, but if you don't have all the details available to you, if you are questioned about what you're trying to promote, you're going to end up looking like a fucking idiot. And regardless of whether you are true, or rather, regardless of whether you are right and your point is correct, if you look like an idiot, you are going to damage your cause. You are going to damage what effect you are trying to have. And then when you actually say valid things, people are going to see that in a different perspective, and it's not going to have the same positive effect that it should have. So keep that in mind. So if you are reserved with your information, but not completely closed off, use it as appropriate. Know when to relax and know when to apply pressure. And like I was about to say, I find a good method for debate is asking people to explain their position. Because if you do in fact know what you're talking about, it should be an easy task to prove that you are right. But why do we have these endless debates with all these people who have an opposed position? Is it because there are two different versions of truth? Or is it the case of one person has more information than the other person? I believe that in any debate, one person always has more information than the other. That's why one is the winner and one is not. But it doesn't always play out that way. Why is that? And it's got to do with optics, unfortunately. So if you ask your opponent questions to put them into a position, you want to try and checkmate them. You want to make them say stupid shit that doesn't make any sense, and then you highlight that. Then you present information which is contrary to whatever they're trying to say, because presuming what you are debating is true, that should be very, very easy. But if you just come out with everything all at once, it's going to be wasted, it's going to be overlooked. Know when to apply pressure and know when to relax. Know when to speak broadly and know when to be specific. You can always speak broadly, less about debates now, but more so just for talking to your peers now. You can always speak broadly, but always truthfully. You can always speak broadly and add detail as per you see the receptiveness is available from your subject. Remember, the most truthful things in this world are also the most uncomfortable things for people to understand and digest. So we want to try and make it easier to digest. We want to prepare appetizers, if you will, or prebiotics for the red pills so that they're not rejected. So lay the foundations, lay the groundwork. plant the seeds rather than trying to feed them a tree, for lack of a better example. It's easier to eat an acorn than it is to eat an entire oak tree. Alright? I don't know, that's all I have to say. I think that makes sense. I hope it makes sense. Don't rush, but don't fuck around for too long either. You've got to get stuff done, but that doesn't mean go full steam. And I think I've already said it, but don't waste your time with boomers. I personally believe anyone over 30 is more work than they're worth. Really, the best people to be working on are teenagers. But you have to be very, very careful when you're dealing with teenagers, especially if they're not your children. You've always got to be careful about how you are perceived by their parents. If you're giving these teenagers truths that are being repeated at home that their parents react to, well, then they're going to have that same negative reaction and then associate that with you, and then therefore you're going to be demonized for leading these children astray. So that's a good example of why you should speak broadly, because if all you're doing is promoting healthy lifestyle, which is a very, very broad thing in itself to say, we want to present irrefutable truths. Now, the more information you know, irrefutable truths are more detailed and specific. But remember who you're dealing with. Remember that people don't know everything that you know. So you have to think about, what is an irrefutable truth to this person? What can I say to this person that they can't argue with, and let them digest that? When they can handle that, when they can fathom that, when you can talk from that now as a starting point in your next conversation, then progress and add detail and intensity. Too much, too soon will be repelled. Anyway, that's all I have to say. Thanks for listening.